This is a co-production of labour between myself and Ronka and Sarah Robinson, working on this project for about 18 months or so. It's very much set within the context of discussions over the last 30 years about disorganised capitalism. Those themes arising from that, but more particularly drawing on Gibson Burrell's work, where he argues that neoliberal capitalism is better conceptualised as reorganised or reorganising rather than thinking about the end of capitalism at all. So this particular project is we're looking at how a particular union, the International Union of Food Workers, is responding to the ever-changing nature of corporate multinational organisations, neoliberal corporations as we call them, and how they're bringing traditional anti-union type strategies, activities, practices alongside tactics developed or we associate more readily with more underground social movements such as Adbusters, movements such as that. So these are our two little cases. On the left we have the website for Mondelēz International, craft foods basically, and Scream-Delise International, which is the parody website set up by the IUF as part of their campaign against the anti-union activities of the IUF. Screenshot of Mondelez. This is taken last year. One of the problems of using websites as pieces of data is that they move and they shift and they change. However, the general structure of the IUF website remains the same with those about us, our brand family, well-being, investors newsroom, join us. That remains the same. Some of the images have changed. Scream-Delise website remains largely the same as well if you were to go and search it now. A couple of research questions we're interested in. How does a corporate website, understood as a social organisation of appearances, so we're using Debord's theory of spectacle, détournement, to try and unpick, unravel what is going on here, and how the union seems to be very, we're not sure whether they're consciously doing it, but consciously using these Debordian, what we might call Debordian methods to reveal these hidden haunts of production, as Marx might say. What is included and who is excluded? How does the IUF campaign attempt to lift the veil on the corporate activities of Mondelez? And what might this case tell us about the political economy of organisations? I'm not sure I'm going to get there today. Key concepts: Burrell's work on reorganising capitalism, David Harvey's work, who cites Debord in his book on neoliberalism and crisis, where Harvey says Debord identifies contemporary capitalism shifts from the production of things to the production of spectacle. And Debord's intent was drawing on Marx to unveil those hidden haunts of production, which becomes sealed by these mediatised veils, and we might think of social media websites as being part of that. So this process includes attribution of agency to non-human entities, and this is something we see that Mondelez quite nicely show us. Won't say too much about this because time, I'm sure you want to. I think the analysis is perhaps the most interesting part. Methodology: we draw on visual semiotics to try and do an in-depth analysis of both websites, what groups and individuals are referred to and how, what social actors are made visible. It's quite interesting looking at the distinction there. Are social actors included or excluded, genericized or specified, activated or subjected? So these are the guiding questions we use. Oversimplified visual representation of what is Mondelez. Just some of those names gives you an idea of where it's come from. It's the different corporations that are now part of the big Mondelez family, as they might call it. Most famously, in this country at least, Mondelez, who used to be called Kraft, took a court cabaret a couple of years ago. Quite controversial circumstances. Kraft Foods is the grocery business in the US. Mondelēz International is how it's now known outside the US. Fabricated name, result of a staff competition. Looking for a name that underscored the global scope of its business. So it's Mondelez. So the world is a delicious place. I'll show you the website, some screenshots from the Mondelez website. in terms of who we see and who we don't see. It's the brands that we see these bouncing brands emerging through the images on the website. These kind of unheimliche Familie of these spectral founders. We have the Holst family, the Cadbury is mentioned there as well, and other founding companies that now form part of Mondelez. And the management team, including Cow and Cookies, so we'll look at those in a minute. So there we have the bouncing brands, so animated, non-living. What is most visible and most animated on this website is those bouncing brands, the autonomous movement on the non-living, as Paul might say. It's a house of brands. This is part of the mission, I suppose, trying to create the thought of a house of brands as opposed to a branded house. We really wanted unifying an umbrella in which all our fabulous, iconic global brands can live, and you can see some of their Lou, Belvita, Oreo, and Chips Ahoy. Some very interesting combinations now emerging. I notice when I go to shops where you see Cadbury chocolate merging with Oreos and all sorts of strange combinations. Not a very aesthetically pleasing website. This is under the About Us page. We have these founders here, some of them here. Could be anybody really. This corporate timeline, the purple corporate tree, some of their historic brands. And if you click on these links, it tells you sort of a partial history of all the largely founding fathers, all of them there. You can't see how much. So who we see in terms of actual people, we only see the top management team. This is when they launched on the NASDAQ, so we have an Oreo cookie here, Milky Cow, Irene Roosevelt, the CEO. You'll notice the share price in the top left-hand corner. $28.75 when this screenshot was taken. Sorry about that. So the kind of corporate manifesto really is interesting. We're all the same. We live in, it's well full of differences, but we're all the same. We all seek joy. We all want to snack beyond the move. The brands are diverse and rich, but the global divisions of labour are actually abolished in this spectacle. We don't see this. Admittedly, this is an investor-facing website, but all we see is these unified signs of consumption which address everyone. We're all the same, we're all just consumers. Irene Roosevelt, she's the CEO of JOY. So it's a corporation that just keeps giving from our point of view. But there's a nice little parody on that. Now moving to the IUF. A large union based in Geneva, headquarters in Geneva. Their action against transnational companies began in 63-64 with campaigns against British American tobacco subsidiary in Pakistan. In the 80s, they've had campaigns against Nestle in Peru, Coca-Cola in Guatemala, and Unilever. In 1964, interestingly, their Congress adopted a resolution that established the principle that it was a task of the IUF to coordinate the activity of unions in transnational companies. So this has kind of been a long-term task. And this is this type of approach to combating anti-union activities that they're using in terms of Mondelēz International isn't new. They've used it also in a campaign against Nestle and also Lipton Tea. And part of the agreement, part of the settlement in those two cases was they brought down the parody website. They sort of removed that. Okay, we've come to an agreement there, we'll take that off. We won't be able to see that anymore. The Screen Delise, the origins of that, their intention to destroy a series of 12, any Norwegians in the room before I destroy this poor man's name, on a factory canteen wall in Oslo, commissioned by the Holst of Freya Chocolates, one of the founders of what is now Mondelez, bought by Kraft in 1993. However, that didn't happen. They won that particular campaign. So here we see what we might call the parody website of Mondelez. For Mondelez, it's Screen Delise International. So instead of trying to remind myself of the comparison. So here, where we have about the campaign on the Mondelez website, it's about us. Where you have join us here. On the Mondelez website, it's our brand family. Well-being, there's also well-being on the Mondelez website. Investor Centre, similar to the Mondelez website, and Union Network. In contrast to the Mondelez website, we do see the workers, we do see those people who are producing the goods, which we see in our supermarkets. And what is interesting for us in terms of looking at this and sort of trying to see the extent to which these debauchery methods, these methods more commonly associated with underground movements are being used. We see how they use this tactic of détournement, repeating the formal elements of the design but replacing the content and using parody. The workers take the place of the brands on the front page, while the CEO's salary replaces the share price. So, yeah, here it's not very clear on here, but I'll actually go back. Please. CEO Rosenthal, executive compensation today, 28 million and counting. So rather than the investor share price. So, also you find history of information about the workers' struggles organised by the UF, replaces the spectral, those founders that we saw in a very small photo. The actions connecting all those anti-union activities by Mondelez and Tunisia, Egypt, Pakistan, the US, and Canada replace the brand family, which is on the Mondelez website. We hear about the Cadbury 5. These are some union members in Egypt who are sacked by Mondelez. The Cadbury 5 speak up, Mondelez workers tell their stories. So you hear much more on the screen of these websites about them. And here they're actually named. We find out who they are. We found out about the background. They are living beings. So that again, unlike where we just hear about the brands on the Mondelez website, labour is absent on that particular website. In the Investor Centre, again, just another example of how they're parodying the Mondelez website, but sort of providing you a lot of information. We find out much more about Mondelez in many situations, many instances than we do on the Mondelez website here. Delicious moments of investor joy. We're one of the most heavily leveraged food companies in the world. Read more to find out how we pull it off. Maximum leverage, minimum transparency. So Kraft assumed enormous debt to acquire Lou and Cadbury on the road to become a global snacks powerhouse called Mondelez. So again, a bit more information there. So in terms of trying to overcome this, what De Boer calls about separating us as consumers, as workers from the unit of production, from where labour is produced, from where the goods are produced. The IUF website makes the invisible workers visible. We've also got a Facebook page. We cannot see the workers who produce these commodities on the Mondelez website. So these are just photos from the screen release website, one of those. And in terms of conclusions, what we're arguing is this methodology of détournement offers ways of getting behind the spectacle. And this is a strategy used by the AUF to make the invisible food workers visible by constructing this parody website to unveil the contradictions of the most advanced form of capitalism. So in this context of reorganising neoliberal capitalism, going back to sort of what Gibson Brothers is arguing, workers' resistance combines its old ways of organising, very more traditional ways of organising, local and international campaigns, with the use of new technologies, with the use of social media, to make these local struggles visible to the world, so they don't remain visible to themselves and to us and to the global audience. It's a way of trying to overcome this separation, connecting the virtual, the semiotic intervention, and the material intervention, so unveiling those hidden points of production. And just as a bit of a postscript, the Cadbury 5 got their jobs back. The campaign was successful. This came through in August. IUF and Mondelēz International reached settlement in Egypt. So there's 5 union activists who worked for a Mondelez plant in Egypt were reinstated. All 5 executive committee members under their former conditions, with no negative consequences to them and with full retroactive wages and benefits guaranteed. So this is what one of the questions we're sometimes asked is, well, how do we know this parody stuff? It's all great, it's all very interesting, it's interesting for us to watch, and is it successful? Well, I've had 2 successful campaigns so far, and this is another example not necessarily just down to a parody website, but those combinations of activities arguably will help contribute towards